Hey everyone. Today's lesson is about figuring out what key you're in based on the key signature. This was a topic that was requested by one of my orchestra students. Oftentimes in class, as we're reading a piece of music, I know I'll ask the class in general, what key is this piece in? There's always some number of students whose hands shoot up like Hermione Granger and say, this is in the key of D or this is in the key of B flat. And there's others that nod in agreement, but they have no idea how it is little Hermione Granger came up uh, with the answer that he or she had. So today I want to make sure we're clear on the things that we're looking for to identify what key we're in. I'm going to sort of go over three or maybe it's two and a half different ways that you could know what key you're playing in. And hopefully by the end, when you look at a piece of music, you're able to know what key it's in right off the bat. It's important to know what key you're playing in because if you know what key you're in, you're less likely to play wrong notes. Also, if you're playing, especially if you're playing a stringed instrument, but this goes for any instrument, if you know what key you're playing in, it's easier to play in tune. It's really important we understand how the notes in a scale and a key function so that we're able to play the notes in tune so that the group sounds good together. All right, so let's start with method number one. Method number one, I just call the brute memorization method. And honestly, if you've played long enough, uh, even if you've used the other methods I'm going to show you, it's going to come down to brute memorization anyway. When I look at a piece and see the key signature, I usually don't have to think about what key it's in. I've played in all of these keys enough times that when I see them, I know what key it is just by looking at the key signature in an instant because I've done this a lot. To use brute memorization, you just need to know what your scales are. So on the screen here, I've got 6 scales. These are scales that we play all the time in orchestra. In band, we usually play a different set of scales, but the same rules will apply. So if I think about a scale that I want to play, and I know what notes are in that scale, I should be able to then look at the key signature and be able to figure out what key it's in. Now on this page, you see the first scale is A major, and it's in treble clef. We can all read those notes. Just for clarity, I've labeled them beneath. And if you don't read a treble clef instrument, if you play a viola or bass clef, you might need these letters written in because you don't see treble clef treble clef notes as often. So here in the A scale, I've labeled the notes A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. I see that the scale has 3 sharp signs in it. If I look at my D scale, I see it's D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. I see it has 2 sharp signs in it. If I look through my G scale, I see that it's got 1 sharp sign in it. If I look through my C scale, I see that there are no flats or no sharps in any of the notes that I play. If I look at my F scale, I see there's exactly 1 flat sign in it. There's a B flat. If I look at the B flat scale, now don't be fooled by this one, there are 3 flat signs in the scale. Down here we have a B flat, and up here we have a B flat. So there's only 2 different notes that are flat, B flat and E flat in that scale. So there's 2 flats. Now, if I know the notes that are in the scales I play, then all I need to do is look at the key signature and figure out what scale matches that. So if I saw a piece of music that had 3 flat signs in the key signature, I need to think back to all the scales that I play. I would know, oh, see, the scale that I play that has 3 sharp signs is the A scale. And you can even finger through it as you would in your instrument. Go, okay, I see. When I'm playing with those sharps, I know that I'm playing an A scale. So 3 sharp signs must be the key of A major. 2 sharp signs must be the key of D major. Now, if you have your scales written on a sheet like this, you also could go with, instead of having it brute force memorized, you could have your scale sheet on your stand in front of you, along with a sheet of music. So I'm looking at a piece of music that has 1 flat sign in it. I can look through my scale sheet and I can see that the scale that has 1 flat sign in it is F. So I know this key must be in the key of F. Now, I'm not going to talk about minor key signatures in this particular lesson. So we have to be aware that sometimes we'll see things that have 1 flat that aren't in the key of F, they're in the relative minor key, or 2 sharps that aren't in the key of D, they're in its relative minor key. But we'll talk about relative minors in a different lesson on a different day. So method 1 is just know your scales. If you know your scales, and you know how many sharp notes you had to play or how many flat notes you had to play for that scale, it's easy then to identify what key you're in. Now, here's another way to think about it. So this is what we call the circle of fifths. And if you know the circle of fifths and you memorize just one or two facts, you can actually figure out the key signature for anything, even in keys that you don't know how to play. Now, the reason we call this the circle of fifths is you see that all of the notes are a fifth apart. Just for example, B flat. In a B flat scale, I know from the previous page, the notes are B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat. B flat, C, D, E flat, F. F is the fifth note of that scale. Now let me go to that F. In the fifth note of F scale, F, G, A, B flat, C. C is the fifth note of that scale. And it goes the same way around the circle. G is the fifth note of a C scale, D is the fifth note of a G scale, and A is the fifth note of a D scale, and E is the fifth note of an A scale. So I can go all the way around the circle this way. And if I do, eventually I'll come back to where I started. And here, going E to B flat is the fifth note of an E flat scale. I can go the other direction as well. Then it's always the fourth note of the scale, but right now we'll just worry about the circle of fifths. Now, how is this going to help you? Let me show you. Here is a circle of fifths with the key signatures written in. Now, I could look through this and read all these key signatures and know what the key signature should be for that key. So I could use this like the other suggestion I said, where have the scale sheet on the stand next to you, and you can see the key signature in the scale sheet, and then you can see the key signature in the piece you're working on. There's something else we can do here that I'll get to in a minute. But as I'm reading these key signatures, I see which note is sharp in that G scale. Oh, I'm not sure. Let me count lines. Oh, it's in the top line. I know it's an F. These are very small, and if you have something like crazy key signature like this one here, this is C sharp major, figuring out exactly what's sharp by trying to read lines and spaces, especially when we're talking about how small this is, especially if you're watching this video on your phone, that can be tricky. So here's one thing that you need to memorize to make this work. I'll write it up here. FCGDAEB, fat cats go down alleys eating bones. If you remember just that sequence of letters, just that sentence, fat cats go down alleys eating bones, it's a lot easier to interpret your key signatures. So if I see there's only one sharp sign, I know that one sharp in that scale is F. If I see two sharp signs, I know those two sharps are F and C. Three sharp signs, F, C, G. And if I go all the way down here to the key of C sharp that has 7 sharp signs in it, I know those 7 sharp signs are F, C, G, D, A, E, B, all of those letters. Now, I said you could memorize one of two things. I think fat cats go down alleys eating bones is the easier one to memorize, but you could also memorize this backwards, B, E, A, D, G, C, F. I don't know of a good mnemonic for memorizing that, but I'm sure if I spent a few moments on Google, I could find one. The one we came up with when I was in high school was Be a Dog Cliff. The problem with that is it has some extra letters. So B-A-D, you have to add an O here and a L-I here, and then you've got Be a Dog Cliff. That one is not as good as fat cats go down alleys eating bones. Now, if you remember Be a Dog Cliff, you have the order of the flats in the key signature. So if there's one flat, it's B, two flats, B and E, three flats, B, E, and A, four flats, B, E, A, D, and I can keep going to 7 flats, the key of C flat major, and it's B, E, A, D, G, C, F. Now, I only have to memorize one of those things. If I remember F, C, G, D, A, E, B, all I need to do is write it down and I can read it backwards and I'll get BE80GCF. If all I remember is BE80GCF, all I have to do is write it down and then I've got FCGDAEB. So here, if I've got a circle of fifths and I know how key signatures work, I can tell you what key any piece we're playing is in. Look at the key signature of the piece, look at the key signature on the circle of fifths and I'll know. Now, there's one last way that I wanted to talk about, and this is sort of this is the trick way. So I wanted to make sure we went over these other things first. There's an easy trick that you can use if you want to know what key something is in. If you have sharp signs in your key signature, if I look at whatever the last sharp is in the key signature, so here the last sharp is F. Here the last sharp is C. Here the last sharp is G. Whatever sharp is furthest to the right, if I look at that key signature, that last sharp, all I have to do is go up 1/2 step and I have the name of the key. 1/2 step higher than F sharp is G, and there's the name of my key. 1/2 step higher than C sharp is D, and there's the name of the key. 1/2 step higher than G sharp is A. That's the name of the key. So if I know how many sharps there are, and then I count through BEA, I know the name of the key by going up 1/2 step. Excuse me, I should have been FCG. I go up 1/2 step from that third sharp, and I know what it is. There's a different trick then if I'm worried about notes that have flats. If I see flats, then I need to look at the second to the last flat. Now, this doesn't work for C. I have to memorize that C is no flats and no sharps. Doesn't work for F because there is no second to the last flat. There's only one flat. So I have to memorize that F is one flat. But if I'm in the key of B flat, there's two flat signs, B flat and E flat. The second to the last flat is B flat. There's the name of my key. Here's three flats, B, E, A flat. Second to the last is E flat. Look, that's the name of my key. And that works all the way until I get here to the key of C flat major, B80 GCF. Second to the last flat is C. I'm in the key, C flat rather. So I'm in the key of C flat. So with those tricks, you could name any major key. Now, in another lesson, we can talk more about minor keys. These tricks don't work. The tricks I just showed you don't work for minor keys. But if you know how major and minor keys are related, if you figure out the name of the major key, it's easy then to figure out what the name of the minor key is so that you know what key you're in. I think that's it for now, guys. That was a lot to swallow. If you have questions, you can always reach out to me an email or on Google Classroom, and I'd be glad to talk you through it. Or you're welcome, of course, to go and watch this as many times as you want. As always, guys, thanks for stopping by.